Dr. Mack, good
Yes,
afternoon.
ma'am. How are you?
I'm good. Early evening, whatever you want to call it. It's Friday.
Yes, yes. Thank goodness.
Thank goodness. Thank God it's Friday. Absolutely. And we made it again.
Yes, ma'am.
Week
Yes, ma'am.
19, I believe it is. Week
Yeah.
19.
Yeah, that's amazing, right?
Absolutely. Our COVID-19 updates here on the Network Live. I'm April Garner, the network founder. And of course, I have Dr. Winston McIver Jr., who is our resident expert. We'll call you that.
Okay, all right.
I'll say that, of course, as I always say, Dr. Mack gives us what we need to know about COVID-19, the stats on the national, state and local level. And then we talk about the health precautions and things we need to know to make it into the next week. And we also have a special guest today. I'm really excited that we finally were able to get him on. He's been very busy, lots of things going on in his life. But in a little while, we're going to have the principal of Hardyville Ridgeland Middle School, Mr. Eugene Bellamy Jr. Homeboy.
Yeah.
Doing big things down in Jasper County. So we're gonna talk a little bit about how he's preparing for a virtual beginning to the school year with his school. And of course, as we always do in the beginning, Dr. Mack is going to share with us some stats before we go into some graphs that we have, and then we'll get down to the business of the special guest topic. So Dr. Mack, you want to go ahead and kick it off?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. Again, glad to be here. As we have been doing in the past, we'll start off with the numbers. This information comes from Johns Hopkins, World Health Organization, and World Stats. In the past week, the number of positive cases in the world has gone from a little over 17 million up to 19.5 million. The number of deaths worldwide have gone from 680,000 to over 720,000. Specifically in the United States, the number of cases have gone from 4.6 million to over 5 million, and the number of deaths in the United States have gone from 156,000 to 163,000. South Carolina, the number of cases have gone from 89,000 to over 98,000 in the last week, and the number of deaths have gone from a little over 1,700 to right at 2,000 deaths in South Carolina. In Horry County, the number of cases have gone from a little under 8,000 to a little over 8,300 cases, and the number of deaths in Horry County have gone from 129 deaths to 141 deaths. Georgetown County has gone from 1,236 cases to 1,344 cases. The number of deaths have gone from 17 to 18. And in Marion County, the number of cases have gone from 511 to 535, with one additional death over the past week in Marion County. Now, to give a few further descriptors on that, Horry County leads the state, is third highest in the state in active and total cases, behind Charleston County and Greenville County. And Horry County is number 4 as far as counties go in South Carolina with the number of total deaths. Georgetown County is 17th in the number of cases, in positive cases in South Carolina county-wise, and Marion County is number 35 in cases. And so in talking about the number of cases specifically, these numbers we know are not quite as accurate because there's been a significant backlog in the number of tests that have been resulted. Over the last 3 to 4 weeks, there have been people who've gotten tests done at local sites, and it's been greater than 14 days since they have been getting their results. So that does lead to some concern about, these cases, these tests being back in a timely manner, as well as being able to do adequate contact tracing when it's taking greater than 14 days, greater than 7 to 10 days, actually, for these tests to be resulted. So it's definitely a concern with trying to get these tests back in a timely manner to be able to adequately assess, treat, and contact trace. Okay, so I think we've got a couple slides here to kind of go through. Um, go to the top. So as I said earlier, the numbers there, and this slide was from the New York Times through Johns Hopkins, and again, it kind of reiterates what I said earlier. Over 19 million cases worldwide, and over 700,000 deaths. Next slide. This is the United States. As we see, it's right at 5 million cases as of today, as well as over 160,000. And as you see, these number of new cases are going up. They are peaking up. Part of that does have to do with more testing that's being done. However, we still are testing at a far less rate than we really should be in the United States, but we are testing more, which is a good thing. Okay, next. Okay, we see this. This is the new reported cases by day. And as we see, the numbers are continuing to go up. Now, on the far end, the number of cases are starting to level off. And we're hoping that's because there are less people getting being positive. However, the true fact of the matter is this is probably related to the fact that it's just taking longer for these tests to be resulted from backlogs with the test being resulted. Next. Number of deaths in the United States. As we see, the deaths were really high in April and May. That had a lot to do with New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Louisiana, and Illinois and Michigan. The numbers started going down, but then as we see, we are getting a second spike in deaths. Ironically, at that dip, we started seeing more positive cases where the younger folks were being positive, but the hospitalizations were going up. And then as a result of that, as anticipated, the number of deaths would start to go up as well. So we're still keeping a very close eye on this. Specifically, cases by state. And this is done per capita, so per 100,000 residents, to kind of make sure we're talking apples and apples. For every 100,000 residents, South Carolina, which is on this grid, is about right at 1,900 cases per 100,000, which is still high for a state the size of South Carolina. And in the last 7 days, it's high as well at right at 190 cases. So the numbers are still higher than they really need to be in South Carolina, specifically compared to some of the other states. Even though we're a smaller state, we're having higher numbers. Cases where it's rising the fastest, certainly what we call the Sun Belt states, as well as, the South and southeastern states. The darker the color on this map, the places where the cases are rising the fastest still. Okay. Specifically in South Carolina, as I said earlier, we're right at 98,000 total cases, and we're right at 2,000 deaths. And as we see, the number of cases there are starting to rise up as well. But again, that slope on the other side there are
Mac, I think you're buffering. We can't hear your audio. Just give it a second. Yeah. Okay. Now you're back now. Okay.
Okay. Next slide. Okay. The bubble just shows where the deaths are in South Carolina. The bigger the bubble, the higher the count in deaths. Certainly the bigger cities, Greenville, the bigger areas, Greenville, Columbia, Charleston, and Horry County, Myrtle Beach, higher numbers. also Sumter County as well. Okay, next slide. Okay. So the number of new reported cases by day, as well as the number of new reported deaths by day, we see that there was a sharp incline there. Now, of course, like I said, the number at the top of the graph when reported cases, we're seeing a drop off, but again, the state lab and the labs are a little bit slower over the past 3 to 4 weeks with resulting some of these data. So that story will still need to be determined as to whether or not it's a true drop off or whether or not these numbers are just going down because there's been a backlog in the number of tests that have been resulted. But again, that part of the story still has to be sorted out over the next couple of weeks. This map really kind of looks at the hot spots in the state of South Carolina over the past week. Again, the darker the county, the more cases that they're seeing over the last week. Just to give you an idea what parts of the state are hotter than others as far as cases. Okay, next. Okay. Now this graph really kind of looks at cases per 100,000, and you see South Carolina as a whole, the state as a whole, has about 1,800 cases per 100,000 people. Well, Horry County per 100,000 has almost twice that amount. So that lets you know that Horry County is getting hit harder per capita than the state as a whole. And that's kind of what you look at to try to identify and determine hot spots in a particular area. So Horry County is definitely higher. Like I said, Horry County is third in total cases and third in active cases at the present time. Next slide. By contrast, Georgetown County has about 2,100, a little over 2,100 per 100,000, which is still above the South Carolina average per 100,000. Again, that's kind of the median number to kind of tell you where you are in comparison to the state as a whole. Georgetown is still above that number as well. Georgetown County. And next will be Marion. Marion's just right at that state number per 100,000. So Marion County is right there. The real question about Marion County is, how many people are really getting tested in Marion County to make these numbers be where they are. Certainly with the county being as close to Horry County as Marion County is, I would expect those numbers to be higher. But again, I don't know what kind of testing numbers that are being done in Marion County. But just to kind of give you an idea of where it stands right now as far as positive cases. Okay, next. Okay, now this slide is a slide that came from DHEC, which simply talks about the total number of cases versus the number of cases in the labs. We're still talking about roughly anywhere between 18 to 21% positivity rate. ICU beds occupied over 1,000. People hospitalized with COVID-19, about 1,500. Those in ICU, almost 400 with COVID, and those that are on a ventilator, almost 300 due to COVID. To just kind of give you an idea in the state of South Carolina. And these numbers are as of 48 hours ago. Okay. Now, here's a couple things that I kind of want to hit on today. Number one, this nursing home situation. 41% of all the deaths are linked in some kind of way to nursing home. Okay. That's of all U.S. deaths. 8% of those, 8% of all cases. So in other words, we're seeing a significant number of nursing home related deaths related to COVID-19. This is very important because the concern is that, somebody has to be bringing this into these nursing homes. And so nursing homes, around here particularly have been, looked at as far as their numbers and their cases, as far as making sure that they have good infectious disease protocols and make sure that these people are safe in nursing homes and in assisted living facilities. Next slide. Also, and this actually came from Johns Hopkins. In 20 states in the United States, at least one death has been linked to a nursing home. That's staggering in at least 20 states. So the concern is, again, nursing homes are an issue, are a potential hotspot, as we know, nursing homes. And so again, just, nursing homes just got to continue to do a good job of being vigilant about screening folks who and watching people who come in. The last slide. There are at least 1,600 nursing long-term care facilities with at least one coronavirus case. That's concerning as well. At least 1,600 long-term facilities. That's nursing homes and assisted living facilities with at least one coronavirus case. Okay.
All right. One question I have is related to that slide that depicts the 812,000 tests, but only 171,422 public health tests. What is the difference there? Because that's a pretty wide, I guess.
Go back to that for a second. Go back to that for a second. It's the blue one.
Yeah. Do you want me to put it on the screen?
Yeah, just put it up on the screen. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this slide where it says total tests 812,000,
right.
Public health lab tests, 171,000. So that's a pretty wide difference there, a pretty big difference.
So those are the ones that are done through the health departments.
Okay.
The difference would be outside labs or partnerships between the health departments and outside entities. Those are ones that are specifically done through nursing homes, done through the health departments.
Health departments. So, and that's a pretty wide disparity, Dr.
It is, and that's the concern. That's part of the concern, because when it's done through the state lab, a lot of times those tests are returned in a faster manner, whereas some people have gotten tests and the tests were sent someplace in Georgia, and it was taking a long time for those results to come back.
So I guess when it comes down to the numbers and what people will hear in the media, what they'll read in the media about, either the numbers dropping or appearing to be lower, your point of it all is basically it's probably a misconception at this point because of the fact that there's this big lag in the return of the test results.
Right.
And then I know that we touched upon this last week, but, I asked the question as to whether or not the reporting has been stifled in any way from hospital to agencies. So, are we really getting real numbers? And, can we be confident in that the figures that are being reported?
Well, we can be confident for the most part about the actual numbers. The concern is the confidence about the hospitalization numbers. And those numbers have been a little bit harder for me to come by as of late, since that mandate was made to go straight from the hospitals to Health and Human Services. Even though the CDC is a branch of Health and Human Services, instead of the information going to the CDC like it had before, it's going straight to Washington. CDC is based out of Atlanta. So those numbers are not quite as accessible or even reliable in my mind right now, since that has taken place. However, the actual numbers of positive cases and deaths, I still think are fairly accurate, or as accurate as they were before.
Right. Okay.
Now, as far as the number of cases, I know we talked a little bit about positivity rate last week and the week before. A good positivity rate would be less than 5%, which means a positive number of cases versus the total number of tests done. There are 37 states that have higher than a 5% positivity rate. 37. South Carolina has the 9th highest positivity rate in the United States. That's upwards of right at 20%. Now, to give you an idea of how important positivity rates were, the World Health Organization and the CDC deemed that the way that we can tell these numbers were going down, or as a means of reopening things, should have been a positivity rate of less than 5% for 14 days. Very few places, if any, states have had that. So that kind of goes to tell you that things really opened up faster than they really should have, hence the reason why we're still having these issues. Of note, 12 out of the last 16 days, there's been at least 1,000 deaths in the United States per day. 12 out of the last 16 days, over 1,000 people have died in the United States. Right now, we're at a pace to have 230 to 250,000 deaths by the end of this calendar year.
Okay.
Part of that is believed because of this mask use. Now, to wear a mask, the mask needs to be over your nose and your mouth. If it's just over your mouth, it's not doing the job. It's estimated that only about 55% of people are wearing masks adequately and as they should. And I think I gave a slide a couple weeks ago that showed a study that South Carolina was last in the number in the compliance with mask wearing properly and the mask usage. Hence the reason why a state as small as South Carolina rivals larger states per 100,000 with number of deaths and cases.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to just acknowledge our viewers, those of you who are making comments and posting questions. I definitely will get to those in just a moment. But thank you all for watching. Please make sure you are sharing this post to your pages, your personal pages, your group pages, any social media where you can help disseminate this information that Dr. Mack is providing each week. We certainly do appreciate it. And then also want to acknowledge the Emmanuel 9 Memorial Foundation. We are streaming live to that particular page right now. And we definitely thank all of the viewers who are tuning in today because of our connection to that particular group as well. Have a comment or two, or actually a couple of questions. Priscilla Fuller, thank you so much for your questions. When will we get to the point when tests will be done in all doctors' offices? What does that look like right now?
That's a good question, Ms. Fuller. And to answer that question in two parts, we should have already been there. The government should have already made this available and made this in a situation where physicians' offices can have it. Now, what's happened is those are called point of care tests. And basically what they do is they can kind of give you an idea, 85 to 90% accuracy as to whether or not this person has the active virus, whether they have symptoms or not. What's happened is initially a lot of these tests went out on the market. The FDA gave a universal approval to a bunch of people, a bunch of companies. Then they realized that a lot of these companies were having sometimes 15, 20% sensitivity and specificity. In other words, they were only accurate about 15 to 20% of the time. So they had to pull those companies back in, rein them back in, and make them show data that their tests were sensitive and specific. In other words, that they were measuring what they were supposed to. Since then, there have been a few companies, a small number of companies that have been given the okay to do that. However, now you've got places like hospitals, places like nursing homes that are now actually having a leg up on getting those tests before physicians' offices can get them. And there are some physicians' offices that are getting them and are still doing them, but there's still a question about the sensitivity and the specificity as to how reliable those tests are. To answer the question specifically, though, I hope that within the next 3 to 6 months that will happen. I know I'm trying to get one in my office, but I was just told today I was bumped because nursing homes are now getting them. And so, which I understand that, and I'm okay with that right now, because those folks need to know who's coming in there positive and who's not. So there's a push for that. But again, it's a supply and demand thing. For all the people that want them, there's not enough of a supply to supply them.
So you say the nursing homes are getting the test. So will the test be?
Well, that's the newest thing that's
The
out.
trend. Yeah.
Right, that's the trend now that's starting to happen because of the data that I just gave you earlier about all these deaths that are happening in nursing homes. But now hospitals have that capability now. A lot of them have the rapid kind of test for those people. I think they're probably pretty much just doing symptomatic people, though. I don't think they're doing it across the board because, again, you've got to have the swabs, you've got to have the reagents, you've got to have all those kind of things. And there's a limitation on supply and demand right now for that.
It would seem that even if they, I guess they've kind of established a protocol that it's people who are symptomatic, but if you are, your loved one or the patient receives orders to go to a nursing home, I would think that they would want to test them regardless because they're going into a nursing home environment.
Well, again, it depends on how many tests that they have. And most nursing homes have actually been not quick to put people in the nursing home. Because again, fear that person may be coming in with COVID. But again, if the person's having symptoms, if the physician feels like the person should be tested and there's enough of a story to make them be suspicious, they are getting tested. Some with the rapid test and some with the regular test. But I do know that that there are a few hospitals in the area that are have rapid testing capabilities now. But again, I don't think they're doing them across the board.
Okay. Ms. Fuller also has a good question, and I guess this is just something that, we could actually just create a conversation around, but how can we get more tests in minority and underserved communities? I know that there are churches and, other types of offices that are trying to, they're having these free COVID drive-throughs and things of that nature. But again, it kind of goes back to making sure that they're utilizing a system or service or an agency who can work through these tests and get the results back in a reasonable amount of time. Right. I hope that we aren't gonna be satisfied with just anyone coming in and administering the test. And, then we run into the situations that I know of where it's 4 or 5 weeks and you still haven't received the results. But she's right, getting into the minority and underserved communities, what more can we possibly do, in your opinion, considering what's available as far as the supplies and all that?
Well, I think a lot of the entities and agencies in the area have done a pretty good job of trying to do that. The concern I have, though, is it's taking so long for these tests to come back. I know last week I had 6 patients of mine who went and did community tests, and I talked to them last week. At the 2-week point, they still had not gotten their results back. So I think it's a twofold question. Number one, how to get more testing done. But number two, having those entities that are organizing the tests, have them having reliable labs that will get these tests back in an adequate time, because you cannot do contact tracing having test results take 10 to 14 days.
Yeah.
By that time, that person has probably, if they were positive, probably have gone out and infected other folks.
Other people, exactly.
The other issue that we're seeing is what we call multi-generational households, where you may be where you have 3 generations of people living in a household. You have the grandchild, the mom and dad, and the grandparents. So the concern is that you can have the parents or the mother, father, or the child bring COVID into the household and affect the grandparent. Particularly if the grandparent has diabetes, hypertension, or some other chronic condition.
Would it help for the community to reach out either by, email, letter, petition, or whatever, to some of the hospital systems to see if they can go into the, the underserved communities or more rural areas to do testing? I mean, I know, for example, Tidelands Health is doing a great job of setting up some testing stations, and they're getting to the masses by being in the, the heart of some, primary areas. But, is there any way that the community can help by, I guess, notifying the hospital systems or doctors' offices of where testing is not occurring because they're so remote?
Well, April, to be honest with you, they already know what areas it is. The problem is a supply-demand issue. If they don't have a whole lot of tests, they don't know if they're going to be able to get a whole lot more tests, then they're going to be cautious about how many tests that they actually do. It's almost like some of these physicians, let's say I heard I talked to a colleague of mine in Texas, but I heard this last night on CNN, where you're having physicians having to decide who's going to go on a ventilator and who won't go on. It's a supply and demand thing. And some places are so limited in what resources they have right now until they have to almost decide and have some kind of protocol on how they're going to test, who they're going to test, and that kind of thing. Or even who they're going to put on a ventilator or not.
Absolutely. Well, I guess, the public will always have these questions and will always wonder whether or not we're doing enough from where we stand to help bring awareness to certain things. And I don't doubt that they have the data or the statistics to understand where they need to be and how to get there. It is a shame that there, is not enough available to make sure that happens, especially since we are preparing to go back to school now. And, there's going to be a lot more movement in the fall with people going back and forth, depending on their decisions on how they're going to educate their children. And so, will there ever be an opportunity to test in the schools?
I think once those point of care tests become more available, I think you'll be able to test, and I think you'll be able to get those results back in 15, 20 minutes. I mean, that's the beauty of those tests. Now, again, the more rapid the test, the less accurate it is. But we're still talking about some tests that has above 90%, 95% accuracy, which is still very good for a rapid test. I do want to say this too, and I found this stat staggering, and I had to check the facts on it. In the month of July, there were over 26,000 deaths. That meant that there was about one death every 102 seconds.
Say that again, please.
Okay. So in the month of July, there were over 26,000 deaths. That came out to about one death every 102 seconds. In the last 10 days, that has gone to one death every 80 seconds.
My Lord. One
death every 80 seconds related to COVID or some COVID-related condition. Now, I don't know what more. I mean, I sit down and I listen to physicians across the country speak on TV, and I see the same frustrations they have that I have. I don't know what more you can say. I don't know what more you can say to folks to say 55% of mask wearing is inappropriate. I don't know what more to say when you say you're talking about close to 220 to 250,000 total deaths by the end of this calendar year. I've had 2 extended family members that have died in the last 3 weeks from COVID. Both were in nursing homes. It's real. This is real. This is absolutely real. And the concern is that a lot of people still have this mentality of I feel well, or it's not going to happen to me, or even this is a hoax, or even this is related to some other entity. This is real. This is real, family. This is real. Okay. This is not pretend. This is not make believe. This is not makeup. This is not fake news. This is real. Okay, when you got to go to a funeral of a loved one who died from this, this is real. And also I'll just say this. One in the last 10 days, and I'm going to repeat this, one death every 80 seconds in the last 10 days. This isn't the flu. This is far worse than the flu. And I'll say this again, and this is not to be dramatic because I'm not that kind of person. I don't think COVID is going away In 2021, we will be talking about COVID.
Mm-hmm.
In 2022, we will be talking about COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't think it'll be as deadly. I don't think it'll be as disruptive as it necessarily is right now, because again, this is new. This is a new virus. So it does take, time for a person's body's immune system to kind of at least have some immunity to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But just like when the Spanish flu happened in the early 1900s, and then they started giving routine flu vaccines in the 1930s, the initial thought was that was going to wipe the flu out, and that there would be no more talk about the flu. Well, guess what? Decades and decades later, we're still having people die from the flu. So the vaccine is not going to take this away, okay? This will be more manageable, I believe, in years to come. I do believe that we will still be talking about COVID, just like we talk about a pneumonia vaccine, a flu vaccine, a shingles vaccine. I do think that they'll be talking about a COVID vaccine. Now, whether or not a person takes the vaccine or not, that's a whole nother story for a whole nother talk for a whole nother time.
Right. And you definitely are touching upon something that I was getting ready to bring up, which is the vaccines, treatments, proposed treatments. There's a lot of talk now about the fact that people are still trying some medications, or I guess treatment methods that have not truly been tested and are still under study and research. What would be your message to people as they're listening to this type of information? And I know everyone says do your own research. Well, we already know that that's difficult in a world where there is propaganda for certain things, and then also people are already being, for lack of a better term, ignorant about certain things that they want to do and don't want to do, or want to believe and don't want to believe. But we have to be careful about the kind of information that we digest, because most of the time we're only getting half of the story. So right. What would be your word of caution to people as they're starting to see new information about vaccines, treatments, and ulterior methods of just dealing with the coronavirus?
Well, right now, there's no proven treatment for COVID-19 other than early and supportive care. So if a person has COVID and they've got chronic medical conditions and they're getting worse, they need to go be seen as soon as possible. Okay, we do know that steroids have shown some benefit for some of the sicker folks. We do know that there's a medicine, an antiviral called remdesivir, that has shown some beneficial results for some people, but it's still not a cure for this.
It's not universal.
No. And there are other, experimental things that are out and about. But again, as a physician, we can only talk about what's evidence-based medicine. So again, it has to be studied. It has to be proven, because anything that you put in your body can potentially have a negative or an adverse reaction. Mm-hmm. I know we've gone back again about this hydroxychloroquine issue. It's not to say that it may not help. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that there are no studies that have been out, big studies that have shown any beneficial, advantageous use for hydroxychloroquine compared to the number of potential side effects that can happen. Mm-hmm. I do know some places in other countries that are using other kind of methods for treatment. I know in Cuba, they're using interferon and some other things that cocktails that they use. I'm not saying it's not beneficial. It may be. I mean, I had the pleasure of going to Cuba this past summer and interacting with a number of physicians from Cuba. It was a pleasure. It was something that I'll never forget, an experience that I had. And I know that they're doing some great things, medical and technology-wise in Cuba. But again, in the United States, it has to show that it's two things: safety, that it's safe, and that it's effective. Mm-hmm. If it doesn't pass that standard, those standards of safety and being efficacious, then it's not going to be approved in the United States, because that way it's being used off label.
And at that point, it's illegal.
Well, it's illegal if you're dispensing it, and you shouldn't be dispensing it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You have to be a physician to dispense medicine.
Mm-hmm. And I make that point because
bottom line, not anybody can just give out a medicine.
Correct. And I make that point because it always blows my mind to know that people will turn up a bottle of hand sanitizer, thinking that they are battling the coronavirus, I guess, by ingesting hand sanitizer. Right. So that means that there's some people who have the propensity to accept a drug that someone is giving them or suggesting to them or whatever without right. knowing, what the outcome.
Right. Well, the way people get around that is they'll call it an herbal. And if it's listed as an herbal, then it doesn't have to go through the same rigorous testing as a prescription medicine does. Mm-hmm. So for a medicine to be licensed by the FDA to be a medicine that's been shown to be safe and effective, it has to go through the process. Mm-hmm. So what some people will do is they'll get around that by considering it an herbal type entity, which doesn't have the same burden of proof as a prescription medicine does.
Mm-hmm. So in other words, ladies and gentlemen, just be very careful and do not only do your research, but ask questions. Ask your doctors whether or not it's something that you should consume as a method for any kind of treatment that you believe you're getting, and just be careful about the reports and things that are coming across, because we're going to see more and more of that as people try to be the first one to have the cure. But also, I think as we start moving into other realms of socialization, as far as returning to school, doing the things that, our leaders want us to do to get back to a normal way of life, we're probably going to hear a lot more that will be questionable. So just be careful and make sure that you are asking the proper questions of the medical professionals that you know and trust. So that's kind of where I was going with that, as far as, just trying to make that point. We're going to take a little break. And then when we come back, we're going to get down to our special guest, Mr. Eugene Bellamy Jr., who is the principal of Hardyville Ridgeland Middle School. They are beginning the school year 100% virtual, and we're going to talk about that. But more important is pretty much a question that Brother Eugene posed in the conversation that he and I were having about coming on today. And the question is, if it's not good for the village, how is it good for school? So we're going to talk about what that means. And also, we love your questions and comments. And so, Dr. Mack, that'll give you a chance to kind of catch your breath and get some water. And we'll be right back.
Thank you.
Your child deserves the best in life. Grow through learning and positive moments. Caring through love, nurturing, and support. Security in a clean, safe environment. Your child deserves your neighborhood child care and development center. 1100 Quill Street, Conway, South Carolina. ABC certified and USAID approved. Call 843-248-0560 or 843-248-3584 for enrollment information.
Your neighborhood child care and development center is open 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, enrolling children ages 6 weeks to 12 years old, serving Conway and all surrounding communities, offering after-school care with a professional, ethnically diverse staff. Your neighborhood child care and development center. Call today.
And we're back. Thank you all so much for staying with us. We really do appreciate it. I just want to acknowledge some of our viewers today. Miss April Thomas of Horry County Rising. Thank you so much. April, you're amazing. That's what Aprils do. we try anyway. We keep the A strong, right? But she's doing some amazing things with Horry County Rising as far as keeping us informed of everything that's going on with government. And issues that affect our county. She stays on top of these county leaders, the council meetings and everything. So if you don't know anything about that group, please join Horry County Rising, especially if you want to know about the current issues that are affecting us, such as flood mitigation issues and, anything that happens with zoning and planning and all that good stuff. That is just awesome work that April is doing to keep us all informed. I want to thank Denise Chapman of Georgetown. Thank you for tuning in. We really do appreciate you. Also, Priscilla Fuller was a part of the conversation. We appreciate you as well. Mr. Tim McCrae from Myrtle Beach, thank you for joining us again today. We do appreciate it. And Deandra Weaver, thank you so much for tuning in. Dormain Nixon, yes, he just popped in, but I'm sure he's popped in for the best part of what we have to offer today, which is a conversation with Eugene Bellamy Jr., proud principal of Hardyville Ridgeland Middle School. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
All right. Looks like you're still in your office.
I am still in my office.
All right. So what have you been working on? What are you guys doing this week?
Well, this is actually the first week back for teachers for us in our district. And so we have the building open until 7 o'clock for teachers to get ready. Because we do have, even though we're starting the year virtually, students will be here next week for our LEAP days, which means they're going to be testing next week. So we'll see our students for that week.
Okay. So Eugene, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself? You did not start in Hardyville. You're actually from Horry County.
Absolutely. As April said, I'm Eugene Bellamy Jr. I'm the proud husband of Raven Jamise Bellamy and father of Madison, Malachi, and Micah. And I am the product of the great big city of Bucksport, South Carolina.
All right.
We're not really a city, but I am proud of where I come from. And so that's where I'm from. And growing up, we often heard, and I saw somebody mention recently on Facebook, what I often tell people is nothing good comes out of Bucksport. And so from a very young age, I wanted to prove that was not true for everybody who came out of Bucksport, because I am a true believer that your circumstances or your community does not define your future. It's all in how you process who you are and what you do with your time. And so I started out as a paraprofessional in Florida, finishing up my master's. And then I did 2 years in Marion County, 4 years in Horry County, 1 year being at Whittemore Park, and then 3 years at Loris Middle School. And then I've been here in Jasper County for 2 years, going into my third year.
Wow. Time flies. You've already been here 2 years?
I have been.
Woo! It seems like you just left like a few months ago. Yeah. And I guess coronavirus has aged us.
Yeah.
Gray hairs on a lot of us, I'm telling you. But that's a pretty impressive track record there, because you've been in a lot of different markets and different school systems. So you understand the school system, you understand operations, obviously you understand students, so you wouldn't have been selected as principal down in Jasper County. But one of the reasons why we wanted to talk today, it actually stems from conversations we've had over the past few weeks about the reopening schools and returning to schools. And, part of the conversation was going to point to the fact that, there are districts that have these rankings right now that they're using to determine how to return to school, the low, medium, and high CDC data rates that are, a lot of the school boards are using. But even in spite of all of that, I think that, within the conversation, yes, we have to follow the science, but we also have to follow some common sense. Yeah. And so when it comes down to, how we process the information and what we decide to do for our children, I've told people a number of times over the past few weeks, thank God I don't have any children who are of secondary age. I think I'd be pulling my hair, secondary, school level age, I'd be pulling my hair out right now, because it is a tough decision. So, but in your school district, you're beginning 100% virtual. Can you talk a little bit about how the school district came to that conclusion and what that meant for you as principal of that middle school?
Well, I think, and I'm going to see if I can do this from
your side,
your platform, right here. So what you were referring to, can you see the chart?
Yes, I'll put it to the. Okay, there you go. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so this is the chart that everybody refers to when they're talking about low, medium, and high, and these are incidence rates. It doesn't necessarily mean that it is all positive, but it is that the incidence. And so what the State Department is saying is that you have to have 2 weeks at least at the medium or moderate level to even consider kids coming back into the building. So I'm in Jasper. And so this is from July 21st to August 3rd. So Jasper is a high incidence rate, and we're climbing with our incidence. Horry County is a high incidence rate, and they are dropping, but they are high nevertheless. And so we're looking at 2 weeks compared to the previous 2 weeks. And if you look at the state, there are a lot of places that are equal, which is showing consistently that every district in the state of South Carolina is having high incidence rates. And so I think it goes back to that common sense thing that you were talking about. If on one hand, we're having high incidence rates, and then on the other hand, they're saying South Carolina is one of the states where people aren't wearing masks and aren't following the CDC expectations. And one of the posts that I put up is, I love the children that I serve. That's why I'm in education. I love the staff that I serve, but I love my wife and children a little bit more. And so I would not openly expose or want to openly expose my family to a disease because of the lack of care from somebody else. And even currently, I had 3 weeks ago, one of my new staff members called me and say, "Hey, Mr. Bellamy, I've been positive." And so
Wow.
I've been quarantined for 2 weeks. And so to think, if students were coming back in the building and if she was not honest, that was already an exposure. Just this week, with us passing out schedules, I had a parent who said, "Mr. Bellamy, my son won't be coming because he tested positive this week." And just to think, if we would have sent that child back into this building, he would have exposed our entire student body to COVID-19 because she said he had none of the symptoms. And so the common sense approach is, a lot of us think, this is blown wildly out of control, and we can add the political metrics, so on and so forth. But what doesn't change is that people are dying. And I know that there are a lot of people who are surviving too. But one of my assistant principals said this week, the one thing we can't bring a child back from is the grave. And so to think that even I or anyone in this building is asymptomatic, and we get around these students, if they were to come back to school and they get COVID-19 and they don't make it, that's a hard burden for any teacher to bear, for any administrator to bear, and for anyone for that matter. So the common sense side of that is what our district looked at. We did look at the data, and we have been in the high category since late June. And it's as it showed, it's not decreasing for us down here in Jasper County. And a part of that is a lot of our parents work in Hilton Head Island, work on Hilton Head Island. And, one of the articles from I think a professional golfer said that it's like a zoo on Hilton Head. Nobody's wearing masks. Nobody's doing any kind of precautions. And so our parents are going into these environments and they're being exposed, and they're bringing it back to our county. So as Beaufort's numbers continue to climb, Jasper's does as well, because they are directly tied to each other.
So when I know that your thought process is as an administrator, but also as a parent, so you can definitely relate to what the parents are probably feeling right now as they make decisions. I know in Horry County, they have a deadline to decide whether or not they want their children to go virtual, and then if they make that decision, they can't change it until I think it's the beginning of next year. Parents are stuck between a rock and a hard place because they're trying to figure out how they're going to balance work and being at home with their children, because there's fears on both sides. So from your perspective as a parent, how does that make you feel?
that is the leading thought for me is that I am a parent first. I'm an educator, but I am a parent first. And I understand, because the one side of education that oftentimes people forget is, just like single parents exist with our students, there are single parents who are teachers. And like in our area, we have a lot of transient teachers. So they are international teachers. They've come here from the northern states. So they don't have people here who they can say, like parents of our students, here, mom, here, dad, can you watch our kids while we go to work? And so one of the questions that came up this week is, well, what do they do with their children? And I said, that's the same question that our parents are asking. What do we do with our children? And that's a hard line to bear. But as a parent, I said, if Madison could go to school, and I had a choice to send her or keep her home, because she's 4, she needs to be in 4K, I would keep her home, because I do know what we're doing to protect Madison, but I don't know what the other 9 or 10 or 11 parents are doing to protect their children. And we know our most precious gifts are our CD through 3rd grade students who like hands-on. So they're going to hug you. They're going to try to get close to you, because we have trained them just naturally at that age. Hold hands, get in line and hold hands so we can stay together. You know, we have, when they're not feeling the best or they're not having a good day, as teachers, we've hugged them and we've shown our love and support towards them. And so that's all they know. And they are not at an age where they can process now, oh no, you can't touch me.
Yes.
Oh no, you can't hug. Oh no, you can't play with this person. Or no, you can't really talk to this person without having a mask on. And so culturally, all that we have taught students goes against where we currently are.
Correct.
In the world. And so understanding that from a practical, common sense approach, the only person who can do the job of protecting your child is you.
That's right.
And that's just point blank, period. Even for me as a principal, we're open. Our teachers are going to be in the building. And I told them the first day, you know, I'm anxious because I don't know where y'all were all summer.
I know, last night.
Exactly. So when you come in here, I don't know what you're bringing, but we have to be here because we need our jobs. And so I empathize with parents. And so I think it goes to the question, because I did have a parent come this summer and she said, Mr. Bellamy, everybody on my street lost our job this summer because we had to keep our kids. And I said, okay. And she was like, I said, but it's your kid.
That's right.
You know, it's your kid. And she was like, what does that mean? I said, okay, how many of y'all is it? And she was like, it's like 6 of us. I said, okay, so 6 of you lost your job. What if you worked it out with your jobs? And I don't know if this is possible with every job, but maybe this month, one of the 6 of you kept all 6 of y'all kids and y'all pay that person. That person is still being paid to take care of their child, but that is the power of the village. And so we got to get outside of the box, think outside of the box in ways that all of us don't have to lose our jobs. And all of us are not able to get unemployment and all the extra funding. But what are ways that we can support each other to ensure that all of us are continue to make a living for ourselves, but also that our kids are being held accountable. And so she just kind of looked, she was like, I didn't think about it. I said, but that's an easy solution, right? And she was like, yeah. I said, because if you can tell me that they lost their jobs, there's some kind of relationship that y'all have. Correct. For you to know that much about them. And so those are the things that I don't think a lot of people are thinking about, because the easy thing to do is to say they just need to open them schools. But there's a lot of risk that comes into play with opening the schools the traditional way.
Yeah, and it's easy for people to get caught up in the debate wheel, and they'll stay on it like a hamster. And, you know, you're constantly just going over the debate about the issue, when, just like you said, it's time to get off of that wheel, sit down at the table with your family, with your spouse, with your, you know, whoever it is that you're partnering with to raise your children, if possible, and have some conversations about how to be creative. And we said that a couple of weeks ago when we were during one of the shows, that we have to move into a mode of thinking ahead, and thinking ahead in a way that where we're open to ideas of how to do things in a different way. We have to accept the fact that we're not going to go back to our traditional means of learning, not anytime soon. It may be years before we can get back to that. Right. And so you're right. I think that was a very great suggestion that you gave them, as far as, hey, as the village, let's pool our resources, basically. And if this one can do it, then, and I had that conversation with a friend of mine this morning, because she was talking about the same thing. And the tutoring question has come up a lot. Parents are now looking for tutoring support in certain areas for their children because they don't feel equipped to handle the reading and the math and all that good stuff. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm sure there's some talented individuals who are reading and math wizards who can step up. And, I'm not saying you have to always lend your time, but parents are going to have to figure out how to add that to the budget now, if it means, trying to figure out how to get that kind of extra support. So we're in survival mode.
April, I think it's interesting that becomes the focus. And there's also some information out there that says a number of people are pulling their children from public schools into private because private schools are going face to face. And I think this is a good point for us to have the conversation that what schools are suggesting is not homeschool. We are not asking parents to become teachers. We're not doing that. Every district's plan that I've read, they are doing virtual classrooms. And so you don't have to pay for a tutor if you ensure that your child is accountable and logs into their classroom so that they can work with their teacher who is certified to teach the content that they're teaching. Because every tutor is also not certified. They may just be good in the content area, but that doesn't mean they're getting the absolute best. So this is virtual learning. Each child in most districts will be given a device to log on and follow their daily schedule or whatever system the district has set up so that they can interact with their teachers. That means every day, by and large, there is some kind of interaction with those teachers. In our district, we're doing A day, B day. So every other day, our students will get a live interaction with the teacher. But what they do on those off days is a direct byproduct of what they learned on the day they met with those teachers. Our teachers will also have office hours and be readily available to assist parents as needed when those students are not in school. So we are in no way asking parents to become the teacher. We are in no way putting the onus of responsibility of the education in the hands of the parents, but parents also have to understand your accountability to your child's education is just as important as the teachers. You can't have a greater mandate or expectation of the schools than you have for yourself, because your child will never reach their greatest potential or accountability. And I say that, for instance, the LEAP days. LEAP stands for Learn, Evaluate, Analyze, and Prepare. And every district has been mandated to do LEAP days. Most districts are taking that time to do MAP testing or some kind of summative assessment to see how much knowledge our students have lost from March until now. And so I encourage parents, don't just let a school or teacher tell you a number and say that's where your child plays. You need to understand what that number is. If my child on MAP makes a 218 and that corresponds at the 5th grade level, my child is in the 8th grade, that should raise some red flags for me, especially if my child has never been identified special ed, has never had any problems with academics in the past, if has always had A's and B's in school, and then they're scoring at the 5th grade level on a state test that's going over state standards. So that should bring a level of concern for those parents. And so it's never okay to just accept what the school is telling you, but it is always important for you to be able to communicate. If somebody says, how's your child doing in school? It shouldn't just be okay now to say, oh, they're doing good. What does good mean?
What does good
look like? You know, And is my and I tell my parents here, if I send you a piece of data that says your child is going at the 5th grade level and they took the state assessment and they does not meet expectation, and a teacher is telling you that child has an A in their class, you should have a problem with the teacher.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, and that's just point blank period, because how does the 2 state metrics say my child is underperforming, yet in your class my child is a super performer? And so that's when we have to be very careful of the superficial grading. Because I like your child, I'm going to make sure that they pass. Because your child has manners and is cordial, I'm going to make sure that they pass. So I'll give your child multiple opportunities to take tests and exams over and over and over again till they get the grade that they like. That is a way of doing things in education that creates a notion that is false. And so having these conversations with parents have definitely opened up the conversation in our building, and we will continue to build on that. There's a lot of struggle that comes with that conversation, because then you have to face the reality of where your child is, but that should be where we are as a community and as parents. And so as churches, for instance, if I have 50 young people, I should be requesting at the end of this test session all of the results of every child in my building. Because we need to know where our children are. And if all of our children, 50 of them, are underperforming, what does that say about us as the community and as the village? Because they're coming to our churches, they're doing things in our communities, and we don't really know who they are and what they're doing. But we're okay with them disciplining our kids and telling us that our kids are bad. We're okay with that, and we'll raise Cain about that. But when it comes to the things that are important, that is the academic success, and that is despite behaviors, because there are kids who are negatively behave, but it's because they're not being given absolutely what they need when they come to the schools. And then there's nobody to hold the teacher or the school accountable, because they just accept what the school is saying. And so that accountability metric is what I'm big on. Hold me accountable as the principal, because it's my job to make sure that your child is getting the absolute best. But the same way you hold me accountable, I'm going to hold you accountable as the parent. And as often as I can, I'm going to hold the community accountable. So I'll go visit the churches, and I'll come to the community centers, and I'll come to the community events, because it is important that I'm not just the face that students see when they walk into the building, but when they go out. Similarly, for parents, students shouldn't just see you at home, but at some point on a day off, you should come and volunteer one day, or you should just say, I just want to check.
Parent.
Yeah, I just want to check on my child. I don't want to say nothing. I just want to check and see what's going on with my child. There's at some point in time, you should want to just have a true conversation with the teachers or administrator. Can you tell me holistically how my child is? I think my child is good. And you have to be wise enough to know that who your child is in front of you is not always who your child is in the building. And so instead of having the defensive posture that we often have, whether it's parents and sometimes grandparents, we have to have a growth mindset or open mindset to understand that we're all in this for children. And if we say it's for children, sometimes I got to put me aside and actually hear the other people so that we can make the best decisions for our children.
The comments are streaming in, and all in relation to what you're saying, and definitely in support of what you're saying. And I think that one thing that we have a problem with in the village is calling it what it is. And, I think sometimes parents don't want to hear the hard truth. And this is the hard truth, that yes, you have a stake in this, and you got to remember that your stake is bigger than anybody else's stake, because it's about your child's learning. And I know that when my daughter was, in secondary school, they knew who I was before I even dialed a number. Okay. You have to be that engaged, present parent, and make sure that they understand, where you're coming from, and you got to understand where they're coming from. And then there has to be that meet up in the middle, so that your child is getting the best education. And you can't dismiss, the things that are being said. Even if they are being said and you don't agree with it, you still have to explore what the problem may be or the issue may be. That's so right. That, you're getting to the heart of some of the issues. When it comes down to the village, you're right. Now is the time for us to take more ownership and create more ownership in our village when it comes down to our child's learning and the education process. And if we don't know how to do it as parents, we don't need to be intimidated by it, because
right.
there are others who can help.
That's right.
I was talking to somebody the other day, and I said, they're talking about the need for, tutors. We have tons of retired educators who I'm sure would be able to assist if the time permitting and all that, and they can make the time if they know how critical the issue is. And it's going to be a very critical issue as we move into this new school year, because I think that those anxieties and those fears are going to take over. Maybe the children don't have them so much, but if the parents are exuding that type of energy into the household, then the kids are going to start absorbing what the parents are feeling, and it's going to just create a lot of frustrations along the way. So I want to share some of the comments that have come in. There was a question, Dormaine Nixon. He said, what do you say to the parents that have no choice but to send their kids back to school?
When you say they have no choice, and I think that goes back to the village concept that I was talking about, because I have teachers in my building who say, Mr. Bellamy, we don't have a choice. If we can't bring our kid, or if we can't be with our kid at home and teach the class, then we're going to have to resign. That's one of those sticky places where there is truly nothing as a principal that I can say, except for the fact that it's going to take all of us working together. And like I told that parent, because she said, I have no choice but to send my child back. And I said, well, in most cases, that's not an option for you. Like, opening the doors of the school is not an option. In our district, we are fortunate that we have a community church, Agape Family Life Center. They are opening their building for some of the kids of those parents, but they can only accept 40 kids. Mm-hmm. Our district is 2,700. We have the Boys and Girls Club that's working with our district. They're having a site in Hardyville and a site in Ridgeland. I think they're going to be able to house 20 to 30 kids each. And so out of 2,700 kids, that's only about 100 kids who can be served with just those three entities. But I know we have well over 50 churches that are in our community. And so we have one that has that. So what are the other 49 doing? Mm. We have other organizations that are in our community that has the space, but what are they doing? And I think to those parents, I would say the onus of that does not fall on the school system. And I think that is a misnomer, that, well, on a regular day, they would actually go to school. Well, this is not regular times. This is unprecedented times. And so the onus of the child care piece is not on the school systems at this time. And it really takes community partnerships raising up, because unfortunately, for many school districts, the priority right now is ensuring that our teachers are in place to instruct your child and to teach your child. Some teachers have pre-existing conditions and will work from home because they have extenuating circumstances, but we are not going to create an atmosphere where we are willing to jeopardize the health and safety of anyone. And in this particular case, our teachers and our staff are just as important as the students. And so to that parent, I would say, seek some community support and assistance. See if there is somebody potentially in your community that you can trust, that you can lean on. But this is one of those times where I say the village has got to stand up. Gone are the days where we can talk about the village. This is the time where the village has to become active and get involved. And I know in many cases, and this is not to knock churches, but we know that there are several churches in every community, sometimes on every corner. And we were often reflecting with my family, we have churches who have family life centers. We have churches who are, I know one church I used to attend, we take a benevolence fund every year. And I said benevolent, as far as I knew, it was for those who are struggling. And so what happened to the benevolence fund in this time? Who are we supporting? Where's that money going? And so that's going to that parent. I would say that you're going to have to look at some other places, because it's a bigger dynamic than just your child. that's being into play. And like Dr. Mack shared the data, and specifically in South Carolina, COVID is going to be around for a while. And so until these numbers get to low to medium, that the chances of a school being open is slim to none. And it's not that we don't want the kids here. And I want to put that out there because I want my kids here. For some of I struggle. I think about often. I have a great homeless population who are living out of hotels and motels.
Yes.
I know of cases and incidents where there are students who are being mistreated, and that the only meal they get is when they come to my school. So I often think about them. So it's not that we don't want them here. If it was possible for the kids to come to school and all of us be safe, we would be unlocking the doors and telling them to run in. But unfortunately, at this time, that is not a possibility with safety in mind.
Absolutely. Again, this topic is we needed this topic, and what he's saying needed to be said. If it's not good for the village, how's it good for the school is the focus. And now you know the root of this question. A couple more comments and questions from Priscilla Fuller. Again, what orientation is being done with students and teachers to prepare them for possible return to school?
We are doing a lot of virtual stuff. We actually had a drive-through packet pickup with our parents where we explain what our processes, our protocols, and our procedures are. And most districts, they have a new link on their district page for COVID-19 updates or the virtual experience or whatever they're going to do. And so a lot of those things are virtual. Our district released videos yesterday of our virtual tours of our schools, specifically in my school for the rising sixth graders so that they can know what's going to be available for them. But the other side of that is we're releasing all this information weekly. I'm doing all calls weekly, but we don't have updated contact information. And so we have parents showing up. I don't know what's going on. And we're like, we've been sending out updates every week. Well, I don't get anything. And then we find that the address is wrong or the phone number is wrong in the system. And so again, that comes to that accountability piece. How do you hold us as the school accountable when we don't even have the means at this point of getting in touch with you? And we don't know that we don't have the means until you come up here.
Until you come tell us. That's right.
And so that becomes the bigger concern. I've had over the last 3 days at least 40 parents where they're like, we don't know what's going on. And I've had to explain to them from the beginning when our plan was released in June to now what has taken place. And so that I'm the teacher first mentality has to come into place. And I know specifically those parents who have children who are often behavior problems, you get tired of school calling you, but this is a season where you want the school to call you. You want to be in the know about what's going on, because I would hate for your child to miss an opportunity because we don't have the necessary contact information to get in touch with you. And then we can't serve your child to the best that we possibly can.
Absolutely. Comment from Denise Chapman. That's good talk, Mr. Bellamy. The village needs to be creative, and you're right. The accountability piece definitely is highly important. Terry Dow McLean, who has Capture Development Center, and I'm sure is dealing with a lot of these issues. She said all those parents with many questions need to be on here today. And we just all need to be a part of the conversation. Yeah. And you never know, some of the things that you're suggesting, even the thoughts that you're kind of putting into the universe for us to the seeds you're planting, it could create conversations throughout our community, throughout our village, so that maybe we can figure out where the resources are, and help one another out.
That's right.
Hannah McIver Sands, one of the things I did for my church was give a workshop on how to have a parent-teacher conference.
That's right.
Even that's important in these days and times. We've talked about workshops being developed to help parents navigate technology. That's and right. How to use, the digital platforms that are going to be necessary. So there's so much out there that needs to be considered. And then, and I have to put up this other comment too, that Hannah mentioned. She said, we want the kids in the building. Nothing is better than face-to-face, 5 days a week instruction. But as he said, these are unprecedented times. Right. And I know we're tired of that word, but it's it's platinum right now because it is unprecedented. We've never done this before. We didn't have to think about it. And in the blink of an eye, now we have to totally flip life over and figure out how to do it from the underside. And that underside really is revealing a lot of flaws and gaps in our system. And so, that's another piece that I wanted to ask you to kind of talk about, Eugene. How are you all dealing with those gaps, the lack of technology, the internet situations, you mentioned earlier the children who rely on school for meals. How is your district handling some of these issues?
Well, we have been delivering. Our district never stopped until the last 2 weeks. We're delivering meals. We delivered meals all throughout the summer. And so the way that will work is when next week on Friday, every child in our district will receive a box of 5 meals, a breakfast and a lunch for every day for the following week. And that is consistent with what we did over the summer, just to make sure that we are feeding them, that we're taking care of that need for our students. In terms of devices, every child pre-K through 12th grade will receive a device to take home, by and large, from our district. For parents and families who are struggling with Wi-Fi access, our district has actually purchased Wi-Fi hotspots that they can check out as well with the laptop, but they have to fill out a form and let us know. And we've taken them through that, or we have available for them some videos for them to watch, and then a contract for them to sign that holds them accountable for those devices, and that it is specifically for their child's education. And what that does is it helps the family of 7 children with only 1 device in the house. So now every one of your children have a device in the house to get their work done. And so we're going to close some of those gaps. In most districts, with the CARES Act money that was passed and down to states from the federal government, that's how they're using those funds to ensure that those families are taken care of in terms of devices. And then we will continue, like I said, to provide meals weekly for our students.
Mm-hmm. One other thing that I wanted to want us to talk about, you were mentioning the devices and the hotspots and things of that nature, but what exactly is the school district responsible for when it comes down to all of the things that these students will need for learning?
And that varies from district to district. There are some districts, I think Horry County is one now, where some of their Title I schools are purchasing all the supplies for students to come pick up. So that burden can be off of the children. But in my school, our focus is teaching and learning. And we do, for those parents who let us know, we do have supplies that we provide for them so that they're successful. One of the things I wanted to share with you, and this is kind of to piggyback, because a school is responsible for teaching and learning, providing an education for students. And so I want to show you an example of what I mean when I say it's not homeschool, but it's virtual learning. So this is our career facilitator. This is our district's page. And so this is how each one of our teachers' websites will be set up. And so for parents who don't understand that language, if they just click down, you have a brief overview of what each one of these tabs mean. And so I'm just going to click on Unit 1, because I think that is what parents need to see. And so if Unit 1 was adding fractions, the first thing that we did was we explained the basics of adding fractions. So whether a parent clicks on this, a grandparent, or a child clicks on this, they understand what the focus is of that concept. After that concept, our teachers will actually share the lesson that they went over with the students during their online class that day. So it's going to tell you the standards, the learning goal, what questions the child was asked, and all of the notes and everything that that teacher provided that student that day during the lesson. After that, we are also going to share with our parents how we interacted with our students. So this is a generic worksheet. In our school, we might do Kahoot or Quizalize or some kind of online platform to get data back. But what I like about this is what we're doing with students, but we've also added in a page, if your child struggled with how to add fractions with like denominators, there's now a built-in tutorial for that child to review, for you to understand. So it doesn't leave anybody out there questioning, what's going on? How do we do this? We have provided all of that for you through our website, regardless of your need. What to learn next for those students who said, I understand that, I got that. What's going to be our next topic? We've even provided the next 4 topics that child will have within that unit so that they can think forward. Then we have the independent practice, which again is your basic worksheet. The students will be able, and what we did was we provided the answers for them. And many people will say, well, why are you providing them the answers? Because what we want to see is the work to get there. And so what the children will have to submit to us is the work to show us how they got the answer. We gave you the answer, but show us the work. And that's how we're going to meaningfully know that they understand the concepts. And then our exit slip will be their way of showing us that they learn. And we're going to do this process for every concept that the children will learn in our classes this year. Of course, for science, social studies, ELA, that'll look a little bit different, but that's engaging and interacting with your students. So we're not asking you to be the guru of knowledge. That's going to be up there for you. When your child goes into the class on a similar platform that we're on now, April, all the kids will be populated, and the teacher will share those slides, and they will share their expectations. For our teachers, they're recording the instruction live. So after that lesson, they're going to post their video on their website as well. So the parents actually get to see what the interaction was with the student and teachers and how the teacher explained it. So again, if the accountability metrics that are there with us providing hotspots, with us providing laptops, there is really no excuse and there's really no pressure except for you to come home and say, hey, did you do your assignments today? And can you show me evidence of that? And then if you really want to hold the student accountable, well, let me see what you did and let me make sure it aligns with what your what your teacher has posted on their website or whatever metrics the district is going to use for accountability. And so with the increased giving somewhat of the school district with those Wi-Fi, those hotspots and those digital devices, again, it increases the accountability for our village, for our homes and our communities, because now what then becomes the excuse when our kids fall through the cracks?
And I think too, the way you've outlined your plan for learning and also for assisting the parents with learning, maybe that's what's needed in every county, is just to know what can be done to help supplement those activities and the learning process. And, I think if parents feel like it's being left up to them to come up with a strategy, then that adds to the anxiety. But if, the school district or the actual schools are saying, well, no, here's how we've mapped it out for you. Right. I think at this point, if parents can see that and understand that, it will definitely lessen some of the pressure that they feel to actually take on the virtual learning with their children. But, what you have mapped out, I mean, it sounds like to me, it's something that is easily accessible, but also you've, as one viewer said, you're appealing to all the students, and that's important. Do you have students in your school who have special needs? And if so, how are you addressing those needs?
Well, our SPED and ESOL, because my school is actually about 35% Hispanic, Latino, Latinx. We want to be sensitive to how they refer to themselves. And then we have not as large of a SPED population as other schools, but our SPED teachers and ESOL teachers, they are in daily contact with their students. And even during the pandemic, they are actually doing home visits and going to local parks, going to people's houses and sitting out in the yard, socially distanced, to ensure that those students are getting the accommodations that they need. They are doing virtual conferences with parents via Zoom or Microsoft Teams, so that the parents are staying up to par with if their child are meeting their goals. But they are definitely going above and beyond the call of duty. And this was even more than originally the district required. My teachers actually called and said, "Hey, Mr. Bellamy, I'm at the park right now with 3 of my kids, teaching them a lesson." And so they are willing, and this speaks to the heart of many of our teachers. And it goes to show you that if kids could come in the building, we really want them here, because we are going where the kids are. And if they, like, I had one teacher, the parent would not pick up the phone. And when the parent finally picked up the phone, she was like, "Are you home?" And the parent was like, "No, I'm not here." And the teacher said, "Well, I'm outside. I know you home." And so the parent had to open the door. But it's
Right.
like, we are trying to help your child, but you are keeping us from doing what it is that we are in position to do.
Oh my goodness. Now, I know one of the talking points that we want to touch on today also focuses on the impact, as you say, impact where it hurts the most, which is child development to 3rd grade. What are your thoughts on that particular population?
And I think this is the part where a lot of districts struggle, because who students become as learners is developed from CD to 3rd grade. And this is why, if students are behind in 3rd grade, it is really hard for them to catch up, unless you have some very stringent protocols in place to move them, and you can do true small groups to support them. And so this is where we do agree with parents, and that those students need to be in the building with the teacher learning, because a lot of that stuff, we do agree with parents. Our parents are not trained, they are not equipped to do phonemic awareness. And all of that stuff comes with understanding how to read, understanding literacy, so on and so forth. But that's also the group of kids I stated earlier who are the most hands-on. And so if you bring them in the building, there is going to be issues potentially with a spread happening a lot sooner, because culturally they don't understand, don't touch a friend, don't be in their space, so on and so forth. And so our district and many other districts are looking at, how do you combat that? Because we have to serve that CD through 3rd grade population, and we have to be very intentional about what we are doing. That is where we're heightening our parent contact to say to parents, listen, you don't have an option to disappear or give us incorrect contact information, because if we don't help your child at this level, we know that students have already lost some knowledge, but you're not talking about losing knowledge. You're talking about the foundation of your child's educational experience. So you're going to have your child build their education upon a cracked foundation if you are not holding them accountable. And so that is where the question that Dormaine asked for the parent who doesn't have a choice, that's why I keep harping on the village has got to stand up. There has got to be some other people to stand up and say, they can't go into the buildings, but we can house 10 kids here. They can't go in the building, but we can house 25 kids here and keep social distancing. They can't go into the school building, but we actually have the potential to house 100 people, and we can fill out a grant where we can pay them for the time that they rotate in, or we welcome volunteers to come in, like some of those retired educators who I'm sure wouldn't mind, but keep in mind they are older, so they may have pre-existing conditions. So we may, if they have access to, a screen to pull them up, we may be able to pull that retired educator up through a platform like this to assist these kids. But we are going to maximize every possibility that we have in our community to make sure that we are serving our students. And again, it's specifically that CD through 3rd grade, because if we don't catch them and we don't ensure that they are getting what they need, the future of many communities, specifically communities of color, is going to be dire, because at the end of the day, what students get in school predicts how your community will be in the future. And the more students who are set up to drop out, and there are statistics that show there's a correlation between the crime and violence in your community, but it begins at this level. And so that is a big point of contention, even within schools, of what do we do with these kids?
Now, I know that you're going to be 100% virtual at the beginning of the year, and you talked a little bit about, the fact that teachers will be in the house. So what do they have to do as far as precautions to make sure that you all remain safe? Because like you said, you don't want anyone to get sick along the way, or, come down with coronavirus. So what are you all doing? What are your requirements?
Well, when they come in, we actually have the thermometers. It's on a pole, and you just walk up to it, and then it tells you your temperature is normal. Your temperature is normal, or whatever. As long as they are normal, we give them a sticker for each day, and they can go to their class. What I've told my teachers is, when you get to your class, you lock your door. You shut your door. And
He said, "Lock it.
You
Corona ain't coming up in here."
In there, because there are too many digital platforms. If you need to call somebody, call them on Teams, call them on Google Meets. Matter of fact, pick up your phone and call them and have that conversation. And with the ability to share documents, there's no need for y'all to be sitting side by side when you can pull the document up on the screen and you can edit it together. And at the end of the day, clock out, get in your car, and go home. You don't stand around and congregate. If you must do that, then you maintain your distance, you keep your mask on, and you ensure that you're caring about the person that you're talking to. If there are people who have anxiety or somewhat PTSD, then you honor that. They're not being nasty or rude. They really just don't want you around them because their anxieties are high. And so that's what I stress to my staff every day. When I see them, I'm like, all right, you let somebody in your room, so that's on you. But I do tell them, shut your door and lock it, and be committed to your room for that time. Of course, if you need to get up, go to the bathroom, get food, that's fine. But make sure that you are taking all the necessary steps. I say, because as your principal, I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm about to lead y'all from my office. If you can't call me on Teams, or you can't pick up the phone and call
they don't know. They
know
now.
Have a lot of interactions. I'll walk through the building and I'll walk the halls. If you open the door, I might take off. Because I have 3 children under the age of 5 and a wife at home. And as I stated in the beginning, I don't want to infect them not knowingly, and then something happens to one of them, and then that has to be a burden that I have to carry. Because I was careless.
Okay. And then as far as the classroom experience, of course, the teachers are going to be doing their virtual thing. What will that look like for the student? Because I don't know if parents even know or understand what that's going to look like for the student. Will they have like the Zoom type sessions going on? Okay. All right.
So it's like what we have going on just now. So how I showed you my webpage, our teachers will start by having their presentation up and going over their information with students. It could be videos embedded, but they will actually teach their lesson. Once their lesson is done, they will do a checking for understanding, which is maybe a 5 to 10 questions, something about what they just did. It could be Quizalize, it could be Kahoot, it could be on Edmodo, it could be a Google form, a Microsoft form, whatever platform they're using. Once they get the data, because it's in time,
real time,
then those kids will be separated into groups. So my thing, I told my teachers, always think of the number 10. If a child can answer 8 to 10 questions out of 10 correctly after receiving instruction from you, there's no need for you to keep them online. You can trust that they're going to go get their work done. If a child answered 5 to 7 or less than 5, then they will remain online. You have 10 minutes, go to my website to this section and click on this link. And I want y'all to review that together. And in 10 minutes, we're going to come back together. And at that time, I'll do another checking for understanding. It is our hope that after that checking for understanding, those students will score higher and they can move on. And so you continuously gradually release students to kind of work on their own and get their independent work done. And so then you'll finally have it down to that core group of students who are really struggling that you can do that small group instruction with online. So for the parents who we had the concern that here, so you really want my child to sit on a computer from 8:45 to 3:45? And I said, not if they do their work. Not if they pay attention. They won't be on there from 8:45 to 3:45. They'll have breaks. But if your child was at school, the other side of that, if your child was at school, how long would they be in classes?
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right. How long? And there was one more question I was going to ask you. So the students, they're familiar with all the technology that's being used. I know you mentioned Cahoots, which is something that I use in higher ed, and that's, real simple web-based, but everything else, they're familiar with it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And they have their logins. We're going to, when the students come and they leave next week with their devices, there we have, our district has purchased a platform where once they log into their device, they'll have access to any platform, Alex, Achieve 3000, any platform that we use, USA Test Prep. As a district, they automatically log into those programs. So they will have one username and password for everything that they need to do. In the past, each one of those programs created their own username and password. But with this new platform, you drop all of those programs into that platform.
Comments in the stream, any questions, please drop your comments and questions in for Principal Bellamy. He told me to call him Eugene, but I'm going to put some respect on it today because you're doing a phenomenal job. And he's talking about his work and the school district's work down in Jasper County as they get ready to return to school, and their school will begin the year 100% virtual. So we're having a conversation not only about that particular piece of it, but the village. What is the village's responsibility, meaning the parents, the community, to make sure that these students have a successful year. So well, basically, you're getting a lot of kudos here, a lot of pats on the back, a lot of encouragement, which is, I'm sure, what you and all teachers need at this time. Love your energy, how engaged you are in all facets of your students' lives. You've truly built a village, and I think that, one of the things that we have to understand is that, you're not talking about what you read about. You're talking about what what you've experienced, and you've had, different experiences along the way that have helped to build this perception in your mind of how it can be done and what needs to take place. So, very good. And there's a question from Timothy McCrae. How will we help the parents understand?
We help them understand by making sessions like this not be isolated sessions. A lot of people are listening to me and they're giving me kudos and shout outs, and I appreciate that. But where does this conversation go beyond this hour? Some of the conversations we posed about the village, are you willing to go have the conversations with community leaders, with pastors and preachers? Are you willing to figure out what it is that the community can truly do to support our families? And all of us know at least one family that is in need. If it is a matter of potentially working with the school district, for instance, if they are able to close off a part of the school, and I will look at this because our district started looking into this, but then some things just didn't transpire. But I think of some schools where you have an auxiliary gymnasium where a teacher doesn't necessarily have to be in there, or any faculty and staff doesn't necessarily have to be in there. Are you willing to work with a community organization or a church to allow them to occupy that space for servicing 100 or so children, where the onus of our responsibility of covering those children does not rest on the district, but it rests on the organizations that are partnering with the district to provide those services. And so it's really a matter of just having a conversation daily when you see a parent, or somebody who is a parent, or after this broadcast, calling somebody in your family who is a parent that is stressing out or anxious about their child returning to school, and asking them some of the hard questions just to see how they are processing it. Is the processing of this situation one-dimensional, or have they looked at their child holistically and what is going on, our education holistically and what is going on? So I think it goes beyond one broadcast or one session, but it has to extend to everybody who makes up the village, which is all of us having these conversations daily, hourly, trying to encourage our parents, trying to encourage our students, and then becoming an active part of this. Even if you don't have a child in school, learning what the district expectation is and what teachers are supposed to be doing, asking your niece or nephew or your grandchild, hey, as a matter of fact, I'm gonna bring you over here so I can see what your teachers are doing during the day. And if you find that a teacher is not upholding their end of the bargain, contacting the school and say, listen, I joined that session with my niece, nephew, or grandchild today, and I was not impressed. I don't see how my child is learning. I don't see how my grandchild is learning from this. What can you tell me? What advice can you give me? Because I'm concerned. If this is the model that districts has to follow, then the expectation of excellence is not diminished. I still want teaching and learning to take place, and I want it to be at a high level. I want it to be rigorous so that when my child returns, they're able to function at a high capacity, not at a minimal capacity. So that if you're going to say they can't come, then I still expect you to be just as great of a teacher virtually that you would be if they were in your classroom.
Absolutely. Well, I have an announcement that came through, but I'm trying to get clarity on an address, and I will make that announcement in just a moment. This has been an excellent conversation, Eugene. I knew we would have a good conversation, and you're definitely very motivating, as everyone has said, and passionate about what you're doing and about learning. And, that's definitely what the parents and the students need to see in such a difficult time as they adjust and, as they bob and weave through this thing and adapt to what we have to do now. Definitely need to see that type of supportive attitude. And I just want to talk about an initiative that we, I know I'm talking from the network live, but I'm also a part of the Whittemore Community Magazine, as you know. And so there is an initiative that we launched a couple of weeks ago. We didn't know if we'd be able to pull it off, but we pulled it off in great fashion. And meaning there's a little committee of us who've put together a summer reading initiative. It's a literacy initiative. And that committee includes Marjorie McIver, Hannah, they're going to get me because I keep saying Hannah Sands McIver, Marlo Frazier, Edward and Joella McQueen, and the Falks. And so the Summer Reading Initiative focuses on the novel Ghost Boys by Jewel Parker Rhodes. And basically, we're going to discuss with our two age groups the central themes in this particular novel. It's a quick read. It's only about 204 pages. I finished it in, an hour or so. And but it's a very compelling read because it basically talks about some of the issues that we've had to deal with even through the coronavirus, particularly when it comes down to use of excessive force or police brutality. So without giving it away, 12-year-old Jerome is his name. Basically, his story or his character kind of follows the storyline as far as what happened to Tamir Rice. And after he is killed, he exists on Earth as a ghost. Okay. And so he is trying to figure out what happened. He's trying to figure out what he should do next. And, one of the things that he says is, okay, so I'm dead now. Basically, what do I do? Where do I go? What am I supposed to do next? But along the way, he meets the ghost of Emmett Till. And Emmett and the rest of the Ghost Boys, which include Trayvon Martin and a few others who unfortunately died the same way that Tamir died, or in a similar way, they all have pretty much come together and have decided that they're going to teach people how to be more empathetic when it comes down to the things that that Black people in particular have to encounter in society, and also just to this cause and why it's important for people to stand up, like you said, for the village to raise their voice and to fight against these things that are just negativity. So they befriend a young lady who happens to be the daughter of the police officer, and from there, she commits to making change and to being a change agent. And so the book has some great themes in it. Things that, our young people encounter every single day. So we're going to have discussions about those things and then kind of wrap it all up for them, in terms of activities and a final project, a culminating project that they'll have to present at the end of the month. And so we have two groups. We started out with just a 13 to 17-year-old group, and we actually met our goal by, I guess, a goal and a half. And we have, I think it's close to 30 students or so who are actually going to be a part of it. But then the parents of some of these students wanted to include their younger children. So we actually created a group that's ages 8 to 12, and they'll have a little bit different type of activities, but we're all reading the same book and, discussing the concepts in that book. So we're kicking all of that off tomorrow, this Saturday at 11 o'clock with our 13 to 17-year-old group. And then on August the 15th, we'll kick it off with the 8 to 12-year-old group. And there'll be a point when we all kind of come together, all of the teams, all of the mentors who are participating, to discuss some things and check on their progress. And then they'll all present their culminating project at the end of August. And of course, parents will be involved in this as well. So this is done by Zoom. You had to register in order to participate. And I believe that we have, I think we've closed registration at this point, but if we received a few registrations after this broadcast, we'll work it out. Right. But the bottom line is that we also would like to thank the community, our village, for donating to this particular initiative. Basically, we did not know what the village was going to do or how they would receive it, but you've come out in full force. And if you still want to give, you can certainly do that, because all of the funds that we receive will go back to supporting these students as they return to school, these students and their families. And so we've kind of worked that out as well. So if you are interested or you want to give, please check out the Whittemore Community Magazine's website at wcmagazine.net. There's information about that. Yes, April, go ahead and sign your kids up. wcmagazine.net. The registration form is on that site, and you can get them registered. Again, we're reading the book Ghost Boys. There's time for you to get the book. I ordered mine from I don't have it here beside me, but I ordered mine from Amazon. It was only it's under $7, and it arrived in a couple of days. So you can get it real quick. There's plenty of time, because again, we're going to be doing this through the month of August. And on behalf of the Whittemore Community Magazine and the special committee that helped to put this together, and I named everyone who's involved, we'd like to thank everyone for supporting us in this initiative that we've only been working on for 2 weeks. But there again, that's that village thing that you're talking about, and that we saw an opportunity to enrich these children, these students, by making sure that they begin their reading assignments early as they prepare for school. And also, I think the lessons that come from this book will help them to prepare for things that they may have to deal with, as they return to school. You never know what types of issues these students deal with from day to day. And I'm sure that, anything that we can impart in them to help them as they kind of maneuver through the things that they deal with as young people will always be beneficial. So, the announcement that I have, hopefully this, it's about a back to school drive. Oh yeah, I got it. Okay. And I also have a message that the 8 to 12 registrations are still open. So if you have any children, that would be grades 3 through 5, 3rd through 5th grades, and you want to sign them up, you have to do it today, because we start tomorrow at 11 o'clock. So, do it immediately. Do it now if you can, and then we'll try to work them in. But anyway, Wellsprings Church, which is under the leadership of Pastor Anthony, and Wellspring, don't you? And Tanya Green, they're actually doing a giveaway tonight for kids back to school from 6 to 7 p.m. tonight. They're giving out Walmart gift cards. It's a drive-up distribution for the kids back to school. They weren't able to do their annual backpack giveaway due to COVID-19 protocol. This is first come, first serve until they run out. They have 100 gift cards to distribute. The value is only $20. It's not much, they say, but it will be a blessing, along with, for tax-free weekend. 1 card per household. Students must be present but remain in the vehicle. A church attendee will hand the cards through the driver window with gloved hand. Feel free to, she told me I could share this with my audience. So basically, you guys, if you're in the Socastee area, Wellsprings Church is located at broadcast in just a few moments. But Eugene, I can't thank you enough for being here with us today and having this conversation with me. And I'm actually, Dr. Mack, do you think that you can come on and just, kind of help wrap it up with anything that people need to know at this point as we prepare to go back to school? I think I got you on mute. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Great job, Eugene. Great job. Great job. I expected nothing less. Great job.
Absolutely.
It's a pleasure watching you, grow up from high school through college, and you and I keeping in contact as you've gone on and done the great things that you're doing. So keep up the good work. Make us proud.
Thank you. Thank you.
So
right.
couple wrapping up things. There have been over 12.5 million people that have recovered worldwide from COVID-19. There's been over 2.5 million people in the United States that have recovered, and over 33,000 people in South Carolina that have recovered. We know, research-wise, data-wise, that the people that keep the social physical distancing, wearing the mask, proper hand washing, using hand sanitizer with at least 60% alcohol, we know those things work. It's been shown to work in regions, states, cities, and areas that have done those things. The numbers have decreased. Please do your part. I am a father that has two children in high school, and just like all the other parents and educators have said, we want our kids back in school, but there's a way to do it safely. There's a way to do it where you can still reduce the spread of what's going on. You just have to practice those precautions. Again, as Eugene said, parents have to be proactive in this. They can't just put it all on the school district, on the schools, the principals, the teachers to handle all of this. If these young people know how to navigate iPads, iPhones, all these other devices, certainly they know how to get on the computer and get their work done. So the parents have to be proactive about it, to make sure that this works and works like it should, so these kids won't get further behind. So again, April and I talked about having you on, Eugene. We both agreed unanimously that you would be a good person to come on to go in depth with this, because we believe that you would be candid about what you felt, and we knew that you were a passionate person about what you do. So again, thank you for your candor. Thank you for your talk. Thank you for your telling it like it is on both sides.
Yes.
We all have a part to do. Not just the schools, not just the principals, not just the teachers, but at home that needs to be done as well.
Absolutely.
And with that being said, please be safe. We will be coming up on Labor Day soon.
Yeah.
Yes, forgot about that.
Again, as in the past, as in the way this has been going in the past, these holidays have then created spikes in cases and spikes in deaths. So, we saw it from Memorial Day, 2 to 4 weeks, the numbers went up. We saw it after 4th of July, 2 to 4 weeks, the numbers went up, the deaths are going up. The biggest holiday around here is probably Labor Day, because it does mark the end of summer. So please be careful wherever you are. Please practice these things. Please understand that people are dying, and that it concerns me to think that there could be close to 250, 220,000 by the end of the year. I take an oath as a physician to save lives, to first do no harm. As physicians, we're doing our best to stay out of harm's way and to keep other folks out of harm's way. Because like Brother Eugene said, I got a wife and kids that I want to go home to also.
That's right.
I've got close to 60 patients now that have had COVID. And so this is real. And so the first one died this past week. But again, who just happened to be a relative. But again, please be careful, please be safe, and take care until we talk again.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. And I know that there's some people who are just tuning in. Unfortunately, we've actually been here for almost 2 hours now, but it was an excellent discussion. But this program will be available for rebroadcast. I will post the YouTube link maybe a little bit later on tonight so that you can watch it. And I encourage you to watch it, pass it around, make sure everyone hears this message. And it may help some parents. It may just kind of ease their minds a little bit and also motivate them to ask the necessary questions and to get the answers they need to prepare themselves for the start of the school year. So thank you very much. Really do appreciate it. And we'll be back next week, same time, same bat station. Right, Dr. Mack?
That's right. God willing.
God willing. That's right.
God willing, the creek don't rise.
And the creek don't rise, right, April Thomas? So yes, we'll be right back next Friday. So take care, everyone, and have a safe weekend. Mask up, wash your hands. Right. Mask up, wash your hands. Yeah. All right.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.